Hello everybody, my name is Elmer and I run the YouTube channel called Jack of All Trades, and today I'm going to show you how I install a residential garage door. So we have here a prime example, brand new opening, and I'm going to show you how to install it. I just finished 4 doors. Normally they take about 2 hours per door, and I'm going to show you how I install each door. So we go first with hardware in the track. We like to hardware our tracks first. So you have your little banding straps, you got to cut those away. And you have to also know which way these tracks have to go up. So here we have a track position of a high bolt. We have like a midsection bolt here, and then we have a bottom bolt. We never use this one because I think the track is, the bracket is actually just a little bit too low. So we always like to center that for center force, center, I guess, strength. So we're gonna add track there. We're also going to pre-prep the top tracks. And we're gonna make sure that we clean these things off. And the one biggest thing is you never lubricate your tracks. Keep your tracks dry. If you ever hear squeaking, it's not from the rollers rolling in the track. It's actually just the rollers themselves. They have little bearings, and in your springs, your torsion springs, which I will be showing you later. But those you want to keep lubricated, and the bearings in those rollers. Okay, so now we have a pack of all these bolts. Very crucial. I will show you exactly how we want you to I want you to organize these. So oftentimes I will just dump the load and we'll sort through. I usually pull out the these big legs out first. These guys are our main bearing, load bearing leg bolts that I like to use. I like to sort them out, have them on the side. I'm usually the kind of guy who likes to carry a pouch with me. As you can see, I like to have a pouch on the side, and there you can kind of load up on everything, and then you're not scrambling always to the floor to grab more bolts. They're in your pouch nicely to the side. You also have these bolts. These bolts are actually for your torsion spring. They're 2 main bolts that we actually bolt in together later on. We also have these separate nuts there. These nuts are also just for your bolt. They'll obviously be different from the rest of these other ones because these are also lock nuts. They have this little bit of a pattern here. That's actually used for torsion. So you'll be rotating in one area and then it locks it in the other way. So these ones we keep also to the side. So I have 2 separate here. They're going to be for the back track bolting on. We're going to keep those separate. And then we're going to sort all these are set in bolts. Normally I'm used to carriage bolts, but here we have these kind of just sit into the track. I'll show you later on as I mount them in. They usually get sucked in, so they come right tight. You can't take, it's almost impossible to take them out. You can use a hammer or whatever, but it's not a lot of fun. We usually set these guys up in our pouch as well. I like to keep all the nuts and these bolts and these nuts all within my pouch, so that way I'm never scrambling as well. Also, we have these carriage bolts. We're going to keep these separate, and we also have nuts, smaller nuts than these regulars, that we keep separate as well. We want to keep all these nuts and bolts just together. We'll just put these all into my pouch, where I can easily grab at them while I'm installing the door to speed up the process. Okay, now, so we have our tracks. So I told you that end was the bottom, and I usually flip these out. That's our bottom of the track, and this is our top. So I've got these are my these are my wall mounting brackets, and I'll place them right kind of like on here just to kind of hold them in place. And I'll place them in their certain spots, and there we go. So these are where we're going to mount them, and then I'm going to grab a bolt and a nut, and these bolts we're going to go put the flat end into the track, and I usually place them on the outer parts so that we have a lot of adjustment. So this is also one nut, and we only need one because it's a higher motion movement. I also do use this slot here as well for the bottom because we want to have a pull away reveal so that the door is not rubbing up against the opening. And I usually go about 1/8 or just under 1/8 to pull away from the reveal. I will show you that very soon as well. Okay, so we have both of our tracks hardwood. We're gonna place these out by the door, and these will kindly be sitting ready for us so we can grab at them. We take each track, we place them to the side to which they're destined to. We have one for one side and one for the other side. And you'll also notice that this flat part, that actually has to sit flat to the back of the door or toward the outside of the door, and the rollers will actually be riding right along here. So we just want to keep that out and this in. So next step here is we have the garage door panels. We're going to do the tracks last, but garage door panels, we also have a lot of this leftover rubber, and you don't actually need this on here. A lot of manufacturers just have it on here, and I will just cut it off, cut that flush off. There's always extra on the other side. We don't need them all. Cut them off, get them out of the way. There we go, we got flush. And the one thing not really too fond of is this company actually does not put their bottom seal into the track. So I literally have to slide this thing out and put my bottom seal in before I can go any further. I'll show you a little bit about how we do that and how we mount that. So I pretty much, you'll notice for this one, whether this is the bottom seal, this part, this little ribbed part here, that is actually an indication that it needs to go on the outside. And we have a smooth that goes on the inside coil. So we're gonna just uncoil that, and we're gonna find right here at the end we have this rubber seal, and this needs to guide right into here. And this is, at first it's okay, but everybody knows how rubber is. It has friction, and most times best way to, if you want to avoid this kind of friction, is bring detergent soap, and you run it along that edge on both sides, and kind of rub your hand along the rubber seal, so that way it'll allow you to run it a lot smoother, a lot slider. But there will be a lot of jam ups. Okay, now, so we have the end of this tube. That was quite a fight to get this in. But we got it all the way through, and it took me about 5-6 minutes. But anyway, so next we will take this end and we fold these in. Now, you kind of see how it's kind of hard to do two things at once where you're balancing your camera. But anyway, so essentially we take the bottom and we tuck these in, this rubber in. We just tuck it in. We don't want it to cut it off. We tuck it in, we'll get this nice reveal. Just give it one bit extra effort. So there, we tuck that in. It's nicely hidden and reveal and put it away. All right, next step. Hand on the camera, and There we go, just go right close. There we go. Oh, and we just slide it along. And that's a lot easier. You'll notice that this profile, it actually has to go in one way. And now, because this slides, and also I just should have mentioned, when you're when you want to have your panel set up for install, you want to nicely set up your sawhorses here and put some cardboard underneath the panels so that you're not rubbing directly onto the panels. As with garage doors, they're typically very delicate, so you just want to avoid scratching that directly. So anyway, so now at the bottom here, we're going to go on each end, we're going to put a screw in, and that screw keeps that from actually sliding back and forth. Now, normally with our rough winters here in Manitoba, we have to take extra precaution. A lot of our stuff is a bit more of a winter grade, so we have to take a little bit more precaution. There we go. We have a screw on each end that'll keep it from sliding, and it's just universal. All right. Next part is hardwiring the panels. Okay, so we got a big mess here, and we want to know how to organize it and how to organize how we make on the next step. So these are your bottom brackets. This is where your cable hooks into. And so we screw in. We need that, and we need this guy. We have the cables down here. I'm gonna set that on top, and we have our hinges. So now you'll have these pointed hinges. These are your these will be your first hinges. Now these two, obviously, we're gonna go up here. They're going to be on our panel, and then we have a center hinge. This is a center hinge. This is what we're going to use for the center of the panel. I'll show you how to install that. Because this manufacturer, they don't have little indent holes to mark your center, so you have to find that center yourself. And one thing you don't want is cockeyed center off when you're looking at your garage door from the inside later on to see it all staggered. So you want to make sure you keep that center. Then you also have these markings on them. This one will have a number 1, and here we have a number 2. I like to organize this stuff, and we have a number 3, another number 3, so we're just gonna kind of keep that in sync. And one thing I should mention is when you're installing these hinges, I've seen this before, you wanna make sure you place the roller. That's what we call them. We call them rollers. You place them into the top sleeve of every hinge. You're hinging here at the bottom, so you want to make sure you're not putting it in there. That's just for the first row. The second, when to get higher up, you want to continue with this upper slot, so that allows for the gradual pull away for the door when it goes up. There we go. I'll show you how to hardware. So first, right away, we're gonna take my pencil and I'm gonna find center on this first panel. So this is a 9x7 door. So we're gonna go automatically 4.5 feet, okay? Okay, so here's our 4.5 feet mark. This is where our center hinge is gonna go. And now we're gonna have our bottom hinge right over here. Second bottom hinge on the other side at the bottom, and our rollers and hinges on each side at the top. I will show you momentarily where they go exactly in those little 100 holes that they have on those side panels right away. Okay, so now we have this bottom bracket. Now we want to make sure we find the right holes, and the rule of thumb is always keep it as low as possible. So you'll have 2 holes that line up. These are the 2 that you want to use. This is a Steelcraft brand, so you want to really focus on each brand, has a different specifics. And pardon me while I shake my camera around. So there we go. Now for the second hinge, you want to make sure that we line this up quite right to the hole. So we have several holes. We have several holes here. You want to make sure that you're close to the top, and automatically I always put my finger right here. I'll place my finger right here, this one right here, and I will just grab it like this, and I'll press it, and whatever's closest to the top, because you want this little bracket here to the highest point on that panel. Every single panel, it's going to be the same. So I won't be showing you that part. We're just going to keep going forward. So now we have that lined up. Okay, so now we have our cables. Cables, we always start with a bottom panel on your sawhorses. So we have our cables here. These ones loop in just this way, and make sure you have the little part of the top of the cable just facing upwards for avoiding chance of jamming. There we go. I usually like to wrap the cable around that top hinge just to kind of pull it away. And we need to make sure we have 2 more rollers here for the bottom. This allows for just for the bottom to be supported. All right. So now the center hinge. When you're getting to the center hinge, you want to make sure that it's flush here along this edge. It's pretty much it. You find a center and you find the edge. That's it. Okay, so another thing that I just have to tell everybody about, I've seen this before also, make sure you take the front filament off. We get a lot of heat out here, so this stuff can actually get baked on and be almost impossible. So what I like to do, because when they build these panels, they actually put the part of the filament underneath this steel plate. So what I do is I just score the edge. That way you're not damaging anything on the panel. You just do a bit of a tear away, and that automatically pulls it away nicely. So you're not having any kind of damage. Pardon me while I keep holding the camera. Okay, so now I got this door panel here placed, where essentially all we're going to do is we're going to center it in the opening. That's usually the easiest thing to do. Is I usually just pull it up, push it up against the opening on both sides, and then I just look at the reveal. So obviously you don't want to go with this flashing. You want to go with the framing. So I kind of just pull it to one side till it's flush. I go to the other side and use that flush as a measurement to center it on the other side. So there we go. That's that part. And then to hold this panel in place, we take the track. I usually press my knee up against here. So this is a 1/2 inch driver. I'll grab my track. Give it it's a little bit of a twist to get it on, and make sure you're doing the bottom and top. And there we go. You just place it in there. Now, it's normally with most doors, I like to have from the inside of the track to this edge about 1.5 inches. Now, this system has a little bit of a pinch on their rollers, so you have to give a little bit more space between that. I don't like that. We like to have a little bit tighter, so there's not too much room for the door to move side to side. So I will just quickly mount that, and I'll show you my measuring process. Okay, so now we have a measuring process. Now essentially this bolt, we tighten up, and then we look on the outside. We make sure when we press the panel that it's just a hair away. You can see that, just a little bit. It's not even much. It's like a hair under 18, hair under eighth of an inch. And now, so this track is showing 2 inches. We don't want 2 inches. The most 1.75 inches. So what I do is I adjust this bottom leg bolt, and then that'll give me a chance to move the track inward toward the door. All right, there we go. That closes it off to 1 7/8 inches. Every bit counts, trust me. All right, now I will stack in 3 panels and I'll show you the rest. I'm pretty much self-explanatory after this point. Okay, so we got all 3 stacked up. Now that I have just barely put the 3rd panel on, I want to make sure that our space in here is pretty even with each panel, because sometimes manufacturers don't actually make the panels perfectly, or caps are not put on all the way tight. As you can kind of see, there's a little gap between the cap and the panel from the manufacturer. So what we normally like to do is we like to flush up or center the panels on each other. So normally what I will do, I will grab my panel and I'll flush it up. So that's flush. Now you can see on this side, it's a little bit under. So I'll just bump it. So roughly what we think would be center. That should be pretty close. I'm happy with that. Now what we do is we take our hinges, and I like to secure them. Right now you'll notice there's no track on this side. It will not fall. This is typically where on the 3rd row where I will add my track. And we just placing the track right here like this. Give it a little bit of a twist. Except for this one. Oh. There we go, just a little bit of adjustment. Now they're all in. There, track's on. Now I'm just gonna mount it to the wall. I'll show you that right away. One thing I forgot to mention is that you will have a bit of a tightness when you're going on every single panel. The way the hinges line up, they will literally try to suck the panel down into place, because you want this reveal, you want that pretty flush. So sometimes I'll just give it a bang, push it on with my knee, and then when we got to find closest holes, so the holes are a little bit offset on here. So what I'll do is I'll pick the bottom one to suck it in. The bottom flushes it up. Take the second one. Take the second one on. And it usually goes in pretty easy. There we go. 3 rows on. Quickly screw the center hinges up, and then I'll show you how to hardware the top panel. Okay, so now we have to hardware these top parts. So we have these simple brackets. Missing one more bracket. That. This bracket here. This bracket. Essentially, we just mount it. You'll notice that it has a bit of an angle. You want to mount it inwards. Make sure that track is straight. Put it to the top slot, obviously. Fill it in with a hole. Okay, so we have this set up here. You notice I picked the second slot up because of the base, because of the headroom. It gets a little bit too close to the ceiling, and we don't want that. Sometimes it's okay, but right now, this is the way we have multiple holes. We adjust that. So I pretty much all right, there we go. Now I tighten up this guy here. We add the top bolt plate that's for the shaft. We'll add that in, and I'll show you that right away. Okay, so one thing I forgot to mention is when you put the bottom bolt in, you have to make sure that you put a little level. It's a little magnetic one. We have the thing called the torpedo or whatever you can get. And magnetically just sticks on, and it levels it out. And then that allows you to make sure this is nice and level, continuously level all the way up. You get that nice even spacing. And then we have our top plate in here. We have these 2 bolts here placed in. Now, just make note of it that this will not always be the same with every manufacturer. Some are different designed. But this is the reach out for the track. We'll have that up right away, then you can see that. And it pretty much is universal to the other side as well. All right, so we got our track mounted up here. Pretty much I usually just mount them on my shoulders. Got a bit of a taller ladder, and you can lift it up and up there to hold it in place. And they're not usually typically light on residential. Commercial, that's a whole different one, a whole different ballpark. So now when you come to this part, when you're lining this up, you make sure that your inside reveal is actually nice. When the roller goes over here, you want to make sure that that is nice. And this is what we're looking for. All right. Okay, so now we have that. You have to hang these tracks. So that side I haven't hung yet. This side I did. So I'll just kind of show you what we did. So we have to find the rafters, and sometimes you have to plug a little bit. Drywallers can always go afterwards, fill those holes and mud it, and it's all fine. So once you've found that, once you've found your both your spots, is I believe this is a drop ceiling. So that pretty much, because it's what they call a cab over garage. It carries over the house, kind of a bedroom kind of carries over the garage. And so what they have is a drop ceiling that lowers the ceiling down so they have room to insulate and keep it warm. So then what you have to do when you come to here, when you've mounted that, you have to level it. You have to put your level on here and level it out, which this one came out perfect. I pre-cut my angle iron. This package came with pre-cut angle irons, which is really nice. Most packages do not come with these. It's really inconvenient when you have to order extra. When you are buying a garage door, be in mind that you will have to order extra bolts and all sorts. So keep in mind of that, making sure that you have everything you need. A lot of times they will have owner's manual to help you install the door, but this is kind of a nice way to show you how I do it. It's very simple and it makes it a lot easier. Later on, I hope to show you how to install a garage door opener. Anyway, let's continue. Also, I forgot to mention, when you are trying to figure out where to hang your track here, easiest way to figure out where it should be, I usually just go to the front and I measure from this side of the track to the wall. And if it's a new build, typically, hopefully your builders are good framers. I think these ones are pretty good framers. I know them really well. But, so you will just measure from that end of the track to the wall, and that should give you your measurement from this end here to where you should be. Okay, so now we have the torsion spring on the shaft. Now there's a few different things you'll have to notice with torsion springs, is how to actually install a torsion spring. Some people have actually inadvertently installed them upside down, like winding the opposite way. Best way to find out which way to wind your spring and which way to make sure make sure that it's winding out properly is you look at this. See this? This is pointing up. This is going around and it's pointing up. That means we're going up. So this way towards the ceiling of the garage. So you just point it up and then you're winding it that way as well. And then we have these drums. Drums are typically you put on, it's self-explanatory. You have a left side drum. They'll have an L on there and they're made out of cast iron. And then you'll have a right one that also has an R on it. That's for the right side, for your right hand. So you just put it on where your right hand is. So normally when you're installing these, this side bearing, you want to really normally put it into the sleeve here. But because this is a right hand, this is a right hand sleeve, so it would normally go into a right spring, but this is a left hand spring, left hand wind spring. So that means you have to center this on here. Otherwise you get a bit of a wobble. So yeah, normally this would go into the spring, but this time it cannot because this spring plate is not made for this exact one. They should have actually reversed this bearing, which I am too lazy to do right now. But there's this is a pre-prepped, and we set up our ladder. We set it up to the center of the door, so that way we can lift up your shaft up and place it in between those two holes. Okay, so now we have them placed up in here between the two sleeves. Now it's just hanging there. What I like to do to make sure we got level, we like to take that nice torpedo level, make sure it's level, lift it up, need any adjustment, and then we leg it in. Also, if you're a bit of a perfectionist, I also like to level out this as well. Looks like it's a little bit off, so I usually take my hammer and I give it just a subtle tap. It's probably a little bit too much. We'll find out right away. Nope, yeah, it says perfect. Okay, and we place the second leg in here. Second leg at the top, bottom there. We call them leg bolts because they really leg it into and hold in nice and tight. There we go, that's secure. Okay, so now we have a bolt here. Now, normally I would use a vice grip to hold down the door. So we're just gonna take this bolt, and I've got a hole in the track here. And that is gonna hold the door from going up and unwinding because this has no windows in this building. I wait for putting up the top panel till after I've finished winding the spring. So this way I can actually see what I'm doing while I'm working. And we always like to make sure we have our shaft centered, so we have equal spacing. So it's a little bit, about 1.5 inches, should be about pretty good. Now we have our cable around, and we just kind of hook it in here at the bottom and then bring it around, just kind of partially roll it. I'll take my vice grips and we set it to the shaft thickness. Okay, so this is how we kind of pre-prep the other side. The other side we just kind of set in place because it's going to hold both cables, both sides at the same tension. And all I have to do is just wind it up on that side to match the tension. Okay, so we have here the winding springs. So pretty much I just like to put it in. We don't want to use regular, so you don't want to use like just screwdrivers or whatever. You actually want to have like actual steel that can handle that because there's a lot of tension and torque on here. If you feel unsafe about doing it yourself, don't try to pull it off because this could actually break your arm. So pretty much what I do is I pull a quarter turn at a time. A lot of these will have a set quarter mount that you would add on per spring. A lot of the companies will add a tag right about there to tell you how many turns. And usually take that number and you divide times it by 4 because I do quarter turns. Quarter turns 1 1/4, and we crank it. So we crank it that much more. So this one is going to get 30 quarter turns, and that is the complete balance of this door. Okay, so these are the top plates. We got that one installed. I've got that one installed. Now we have this guy here. So you have to find which hole works for you on this adjustment. So I like to go high, so faster turn. This is a low headroom situation here. So I usually like to find these matchups. So usually you'll have a very obvious set of holes. You can usually flip these around too, like this as well. It does work depending on how much room you need. This time I'm going to be going like this and popping them in. Okay, Okay, so this is a track bracket. This is for your garage door opener. What it does is it allows you to relieve stress from not just pulling the garage door up from this one spot here. It actually makes it so that you can pull both. And install them, you just kind of find a centered hole set up there. So you just move your track back and forth and you find the match. Fill in with these bolts that usually come pre-packaged into the deal. They're usually pretty short. And then once I can get this nut on, you'll screw them to the center marks, because you have center marks here and at the bottom center marks for the whole panel. And then I will just screw them down, tighten these up here, and then we have this extra track bolt. This is for the garage door opener here, this pin. This will literally, there's an arm that hooks onto here and lifts up and pulls the whole door up. Okay, so now we have the last panel up. A little bit brighter than I thought, but pretty much you want to make sure that when you install these, you install this loose, so you can push this back, because you want to push this right up against the exterior wall as far back as you can. So that way you have your minimum space, and then you tighten up this bolt down below, and then do the same thing to the other side. Okay, so now we have the garage door up. After been lined, put the top panel on. Now we have to adjust these tracks. Now this looks pretty bad. It means the measurement wasn't good enough, so there's a little bit of an issue with the framing here. So that means we have to move this top hole over. That's the bonus about this punched angle, is that we can adjust along here. So I have to move this over and then I can brace it. Okay, here we go. That is a complete track that's been straightened and braced. And the same thing I'm doing the other side. Then this door is officially complete. So if you have any other questions, leave them in the comments below, and I'll try to get back to you as soon as I can. And don't hesitate to like and subscribe on this video. Thank you, and have yourself a great day. Jack of all trades. All right, here we go. So we have all 5 doors installed. This first one is the one you guys watched on the video. Operates perfectly well. Unless this door is done, it operates quite smoothly. Yeah. All right, weather stripping's next, and then that door is done.